Good evening and welcome to the public hearing for the North Andover Machine Shop Village Conservation District meeting. Prior to starting the meeting, I'd like to read the following statement. Pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote means in accordance with the applicable law. This public hearing of the Machine Shop Village Neighborhood Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. Specific information and on general guidelines for remote participation by public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting live may do so on their televisions by turning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Every effort will be made in the event that we are unable to do so. Despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the hearings, please email your questions or your comment prior to or during the meeting to haznoian@northandovermass.gov. These questions and comments will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. Okay, I need a motion now to open the general meeting.
Motion to open.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. General meeting's open. First thing on the agenda is the 196 Main Street. And what I'd like, who's going to represent this application for 196 Main?
Hi, I'm Peter Mosquetto. I'll represent it.
Okay, perfect, Peter. Thank you. So, Peter, I don't know if you participated in virtual meetings, town meetings, but what we'd like to do is all of the information that you've provided us for your application is in a share folder, and people can access those share folders by clicking on the agenda item and the address that's highlighted in blue, and that'll take you to your share folder. When we speak of documents within the share folder, if the presenters could reference the page number and the document name, and this way here, people that are following along at home can follow along with us, and we can all look at the same reference points together. So, Peter, if you can walk us through the application.
Where do I find that on my screen? I had it pulled up on my screen.
Yeah, Peter, no problem. So when you clicked on the meeting, there was an agenda. If you go to the agenda item number for 196 Main Street, click on 196 Main Street, and it'll take you to the share folder.
All right. Just give me a second.
No problem.
Okay. Let's see. Sorry, I had this open prior to the meeting, but
Yeah, no worries.
okay. I have my, I didn't actually file the application. The contractor filed the application. Um, And what would you like me to do, sir?
So if you could walk us through the project description and what the plan is.
Okay. So we would like to demolish the old the old convent building. It's a 2.5-story brick building, built late 50s, early 60s. The nuns have not occupied the building for over 20 years. The parish recently stopped using the building for religious education. Because of the condition of the building, it's in really disrepair.
Mm-hmm.
The parish really doesn't have any need for the building. Several years ago, we looked into doing a little construction project there, and we had a survey done on this building, and the survey basically recommended and said that it would be less expensive to demolish the building and rebuild a new one than it would be to try to renovate it. So that's our intent, is actually to demolish the building, leave the lot vacant, just put the lumen seed. That's the way the pastor would like to see it. As long as he's there, there's no intent to rebuild anything.
Okay. So, Peter, this is, I do have one question in terms of the removal of the building on the lot.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the plans for grading that area once the building's gone? Because it does sit on a somewhat of a raised plateau off of the back parking lot.
Well, where the building sits, we were just going to, of course, remove all the foundations and slabs, and then we were going to fill the foundation hole up to the existing grade and just lumen seed it.
Yep.
According to the contours of the grade, the existing grade right now.
And what is, like, in this process, I guess one of my big concerns is I understand the current status of the building, and I understand the level of disrepair in the building. And one of my fundamental questions is that there is a lot of landscape fabric around the building. Is the intent to leave some of that landscape fabric remaining? Because otherwise we're going to get a clear shot from Water Street all the way up to Main Street, and it'll create a vast area for us. And so I guess that's one of my questions.
So there are a few pine trees on the side of the convent, facing the convent on the right-hand side, that they're in pretty rough shape. We were going to remove those
Okay,
for safety reasons, but we would definitely, we're gonna leave up as much as we can. We don't want to just leave it barren.
right, right. But how about the two maple trees in the back?
Two maple trees in the back.
Yeah, there are two large maple trees behind the building, and there's also a large evergreen.
Yeah, I believe the evergreen is one that's it's compromised a little bit. That there's I don't want to say it's dead, but there are a lot of issues with that tree. I don't recall, to be honest with you, if we were touching the maple trees.
Okay. Now there are two evergreens. There's one if you're facing the building to the right, and
Yep.
then there was one that was in the back toward the sanctuary. Are both going to come down, or just you thinking one?
Yeah. No, both of them aren't going to come out. There are some stumps that we were going to pull out.
Okay.
And I believe just one of the pine trees. I don't actually recall which one. I believe it was on the
Left side, facing the building. That one looked like it was needing to come down. Yeah. Okay.
and then small shrubbery behind the building that
I know.
we were
Is
going to.
that going to stay or come out?
No, we're going to take that out.
Okay.
There's an old shed back there, and the shrubs are just growing all over it. And
Yeah, I saw that. All right, I'm going to open it up for questioning. Justin?
Well, I actually I really don't have a lot of questions on this one. I mean, built in the 1950s and 60s, so it's not really historic. And while I did attend CCD there, so I have a liking for the building, I also am a fan of open space, so I really don't have any objections or questions about it. I think I'm okay with it as the application stands.
Okay. Tim?
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right. I too, I don't have any objections, any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Jerry?
No, I don't have any objections, but other than seed and loam, do you plan on doing any site improvements to the area where the building was?
right now, it's just to lumen seed.
Okay. Then other than that, I have no objections.
Okay. Bernie?
So as far as the trees, is that something that would be appropriate to be memorialized in the application? What's to be done with them?
I can write it into the certificate of alter. It does impact the overall site. And I'm in all likelihood going to include that.
Okay. And as far as future use, is it appropriate now to ask that question?
Currently, there's nothing on the docket for future use. So the only thing in front of us is the demolition of the structure that's there.
Okay. Then I have no problem.
Okay. So can I get a motion then? It sounds like discussion is done. Let me just verify from the public that there are no questions that have come in. There are no questions that have come in on this application. So can I get a motion to, based on the application, we are going to make a motion for demolition of the 2.5-story brick building located on 196 Main Street.
Motion to approve demolition of building located at 196 Main Street.
Second.
Second,
It's,
Matt.
Who seconded that?
Both Justin and I.
Okay. Okay, because we're virtual, I'm gonna go around for the vote. Justin? Are you in favor or?
In favor.
Okay. Jerry?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
And Bernie?
All right.
Okay, the motion passed. Peter, we'll be issuing a certificate to alter for the demolition. We'll be forwarding that to the building department. You'll be getting a copy from Bernadette once that's issued, and then you can proceed from there.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, next agenda item is 180 Water Street. We originally had an application for 180 Water Street to replace siding and windows. We received a notice from the owner, who is not present at this meeting, that they had went ahead and installed those windows and siding and made the alterations to the structure without coming through our process and applying for a certificate to alter. And they have not had a building permit that was issued for the work that was conducted. So at this point, I'm going to open it up for non-compliance to the commission. We have a situation where the application did not go forward, and what we'd like to do is, at this point, issue a notice to the owner of 180 Water Street to give them 30 days in order to come into compliance with the bylaw. That date will be until December 13th. If they are not in compliance as of December 13th, starting on December 4th, we will fine them $300 per day with a violation until they come into compliance. I'm going to open that up for discussion among the commission members. I'll start with Justin.
Yeah, my first note would be that the house is for sale, so I don't know, how does that affect the sale of the house?
Well, what will happen, Justin, is we will issue this. The letter will be drafted by the building inspector. The building inspector will mail it to the applicant or to the owner. I don't know how that impacts a pending sale, or if there is a pending sale. That I don't know. We would have to talk to town council on that. But I want to give the homeowner an opportunity to get in compliance. So I think 30 days is a reasonable time frame. After that time, I think it's I think putting a $300 a day fine on that would be appropriate.
I guess my question is, if it sells before that, what happens? Like, does it just dissolve, or does the prior owner get, still, how does, I don't know how that works.
Wouldn't there be a lien?
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to talk to town council on that, and along with the building inspector to see what the venue is. What I'm expecting to get out of this item on tonight's meeting is that do people feel that we have a violation, or at least a non-conformance? Do you feel that 30 days is adequate? We could make it 1 week. I don't feel that they could get in compliance within a week, but so the duration of time to allow for them to get into compliance is something
Okay.
we can discuss. I'm throwing out 30 days, thinking 30 days would be adequate for them to apply for a certificate and get a building permit as well.
Yeah,
So
30 days for me.
That's fine with me.
So do we have any precedent, anything like this?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Do we have anything?
Surely in the years that some of you have been on the commission, there have been people who've been non-compliant before. How was that dealt, or is this the first time?
Yeah, normally, good question, Bernie. Normally, it's usually a conversation with the owner for them to understand. So a lot of times, if someone didn't know they were supposed to put an application in or didn't go through the process, for example, those are different circumstances in which we are probably more lenient in terms of working with the applicant and helping getting into compliance. In this particular case, it's different. On 6/26, a contractor representing the applicant filed for an application. So that clearly there was no concern in terms of understanding what was required. Secondarily, they knowingly made those alterations to that structure without getting a building permit as well. So yes, we have done these before. I think this is a little bit more definitive in terms of how we're going to approach it.
So this representative on 6/26, has he or she been alerted as to this meeting today?
The homeowner has been. By fact that it's on the agenda, the homeowner was sent notice, yes.
So maybe 30 days is too much, especially since it's on the market. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there.
It's a good point, Jerry. Thoughts? Well, let me go to Tim. Tim, do you have thoughts on this?
No, I understand the concern, but I just don't know if you really ratchet down and give them a really short window to address this. How quickly can they address it?
I think 30 days is a reasonable time frame.
I think it's reasonable. I mean, it would. I don't know if you could get it done much quicker.
I don't believe so.
I mean, the house is under contract, so again, it'll be interesting to see what can even be done. I mean, if that closing's in 20 days and there's a 30-day, we have a 30-day on it, are they just going to sell the house and run? Probably.
I would have to think that there would be a lien on it.
Well, that's my question, right? Is the town going to prevent the sale of the house? I don't know.
And you can get those answers from town council?
Yes. All right, Justin. I think what I'd like to suggest then, Justin, I wasn't aware that it was under agreement. I was aware that it was for sale.
I just pulled up the listing and it says it's under agreement.
Yeah, under agreement. So what I think I'm going to make a different recommendation to the board. What I'd like to recommend is that we have a continuance for this particular agenda item. And we need 48 hours to post. So we can tentatively do it either on Friday or Monday. That'll give me time to speak with town council, and we can then have a more definitive plan forward. given that we don't have a timeline that may not work. Because I
Okay, that
don't
makes
know the
sense to
answer.
me.
I don't know the answer of a pending sale and the impact that has on our ability to have influence. I think the question of, a new owner taking on that responsibility is I don't know where that falls. So it's a good question, and I don't have the answer. So I would like to have a motion for a continuance of this. I don't think it has to be a long meeting. I think we can, if people are open at having a quick meeting on Friday or Monday, Monday may be better. Fridays are usually tough for people. Why don't we try to have a continuance in this agenda item for Monday evening? Will that work for
Okay.
everybody?
I believe so, yeah.
That would work
Okay.
for me.
I'm
Okay,
okay.
good. I just need a vote for a motion for a continuance and then a vote. So a motion for the continuance.
Motion to
Motion.
continue.
Seconded.
All right. Okay. Okay. And Justin, you're in favor. Jerry, you're in favor. Tim,
Aye.
you're in favor. And Bernie, you're in
Yes.
favor.
Yes.
Okay. 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 Bernadette, can you set up a meeting for us on Monday? Will that be possible?
Yeah, it looks like there's a meeting scheduled for 5 o'clock, but do you want to shoot for 6 o'clock?
Yeah, that'll be fine. Even a little later is fine too.
Okay, might be 6:30 or so. So yeah, I'll try to schedule that tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next agenda item. Who's going to be representing the application for the East Mill?
Hi, this is Francis Ewan with Avalon Bay, representing the East Mill.
Okay. All right.
And then
Okay.
within this shared folder, I'd like to direct you to the file that's dated 11/5/2021.
Okay, hold on.
Let me know when you guys are ready to go.
Ready.
Okay, is everybody ready?
I believe so.
Okay, sounds good. Again, my name is Francis Ewan. I'm a development director representing the applicant Avalon Bay. I'm joined on the call by my colleague Dave Gillespie, Vice President of Development at Avalon Bay, the project architect, Ad Bradford from the architectural team, and Dave Steinberg of RCG, the current owner of the East Mill site. Avalon Bay is working with RCG on the development of Lot 2 of the East Mill parcel, a project that was previously approved by the Machine Shop Village Conservation District in March of 2018. What we are presenting in front of you today is a facade change to that project that is more in line with the project that Avalon Bay is currently developing across the street in the West Mill. Now jumping into the attachment, that first slide just shows an overall site plan of the project. Again, this project is a 51 unit apartment building that will be developed on lot 2 of the East Mill. This initial slide is just really meant for overall context. If you go to the second slide, what we are showing are the minor modifications that we are making to the site itself. So what you'll see is that we are adding a concrete steps and an ADA ramp that will connect the upper parking area on lot 3 to the lower parking area on lot 2, which will both of which will serve the East Mill project. Again, moving along to the third slide that shows the grading and drainage plan. Again, this is just meant for overall context, showing the overall grading that currently exists at the site and some of the work that is to be done. And with that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Ed Bradford to discuss some of the more specific facade changes that we are recommending for this project.
Thanks, Francis. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Bradford. I'm a principal with the architectural team, the architects working on the design. Is it possible to share the screen, or should we just continue speaking to the slides?
You know, you can do it either way. You can share it. We all have it up. But if you want to share, you could share.
Yeah, why don't I try that? Can folks see my screen?
We can.
Great.
I can see it.
So I'll pick up at I think we're at slide 4 of 12, which is a aerial view showing the proposed design. So as Francis noted, it's a 51 unit new building, and for those of you that were part of the review of the original design, the approved design, this will look very familiar to you because there were actually, very few changes proposed, and as Francis noted, they're mostly having to do with some adjustments in the facades and the materials. But just for context, what you have in the foreground, of course, is the East Mill Pond. Just to the left are the East Mill. High Street is just here off to the corner. Actually, can folks see my cursor as well?
I can see it okay.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So just in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, that's High Street. So access, if you're familiar with the original approved design, is from High Street. The parking area to the north, the East Mill Pond in the foreground. It's really fantastic sort of open space and orientation of the building towards the pond, and this great access to the south and the sun. And as I will show you in a moment, the floor plan is quite skinny. It's a single loaded corridor building. So the corridor for the units on the upper floors, the second, third, and fourth floors, is oriented towards the parking, with all of the units oriented to the south and to the pond. So it's pretty great layout. We aren't proposing any changes to the layout, so we're lucky to start with something that was working so well. I'll move on to page 5 of 12. And this is an exhibit that compares the approved first floor plan with our proposed first floor plan. So, and the following exhibits are arranged in a similar way. So what you have is on the bottom row here is the approved design, and on the top, the proposed changes. I'll start with kind of the big picture here in the table in the lower right-hand corner. Because as I noted, we're proposing, very few changes as far as the kind of big picture goes again. So this column shows the approved design, and then just to the right of that, the proposed design. So as far as building footprint goes, we're not changing the footprint. We're holding pat on that layout. Even for a gross floor area, we're still proposing the same exact stacking of that footprint. So a 4-story building, gross floor area is identical. Number of units is also identical, 51 units. We have spent some time with Dave and Francis in Avalon Bay is sorting out adjustments to the interior of the box, if you will. And that did result in some minor tweaking of the program, the mix of units, but even there, it's pretty minor. So you can see a pretty similar combination of what we call 1-bedroom units. A combination of studios and ones is the same. Some adjustment of the 2s, a slight increase, and then a decrease in the 3s. But all told, we're actually talking, about fewer bedrooms in this project compared to the approved design, but quite similar to the approved design. And then finally, to stick with some of these stats, the building height is also very, very similar. I'll show you an elevation in a moment. The approved design had at its highest point about 50 feet to the tallest parapet. We're holding that. And then over the sort of main stretch of the building, we are proposing a slight increase in height, just over about a foot or so. But again, you'll see in the elevation comparison, really something that's very similar. So just to hop to these floor plans for a second, again, the approved design on the bottom, our proposed adjustments on the top, and again, focused really within the inside of the building. And even the main configuration of the building is quite similar. In the original design, there's a entry sort of justified to this side of the building. We've held that, an elevator adjacent and a lobby and some amenity space. We have a very similar configuration, main entry. And then what we're proposing here is along with the elevator lobby, some facilities for mail and packages, and then a small kind of work from home amenity with great access to an outdoor patio, again, with that south orientation to the pond. One adjustment that we made on the site plan in that area that Francis noted is we have shifted the trash enclosure that was on the site it really into the interior of the building. So what you can see right here at the ground floor, this shows the termination of trash and recycling chutes that are on the upper floors. So this is showing compactors for both trash and recycling that's contained within the building. So you can see that's one adjustment at the first floor. But otherwise, the major circulation is quite the same. Egress stairs on opposite ends. And then again, the main adjustments are really within the unit. So you can see, there's quite a bit of adjustment within each of these units, but that's again within the constraints of that footprint. And so what that does result in is a slight adjustment of the unit entries. So while the main entry is in the same basic location, some of the unit entries have shifted, left or right, but it's the same basic concept. The first floor units get the advantage of having through access for access, light, and ventilation. I'll show you at the upper floor, you have a corridor at this location, but these are great units with access from the parking in the front into the main entry, and then a nice terrace at grade with that access to the pond. And again, the adjustments are really within the footprint of those demising walls. I'm moving on now to page 6 of 12. This shows the typical floor plan. Again, same configuration of the approved design in the lower row and the proposed adjustments on the top row. So as I noted, this sort of slender format and footprint is organized with a common corridor oriented or on the side of the parking. And then again, the units with that southern access to the pond. You can see, comparing the two, again, very few adjustments. stairs and elevators in essentially the same spot. One change that is noticeable is the original design proposed some mechanical equipment organized along this corridor spine. We have moved that equipment, individual condensing units, to the roof. So that allowed us to push the corridor a little bit closer to the wall and gain a little bit more space for the units. But again, otherwise, the changes are really wholly within the unit itself. So just like our design for Avalon North Andover Mills first phase that you see a couple renderings for, and I know some of you are familiar with this design, having reviewed it earlier. Our inspiration really, of course, comes from the mills themselves. So you can see in the left and bottom rows the east and west mills, and as we discussed with your group during review of the phase one, there's really what informs our design mostly is this regular pattern of windows and simple detailing in the cornice and the like, and that was a process and ideas that certainly informed phase one, and no doubt informed the approved design of what we were calling phase two as well. I'll move on to page 7 of 12, which shows a comparison of the north elevations. So again, same organization, approved design on the lower row, and the proposed design on the top. And again, just as with the plans, I think you can see quite a more similarities than differences. Same kind of organization with this kind of continuous cornice. This concept of having a taller volume and cornice to identify the entry. You can see we've maintained that basic idea as well. One change that you will note, again, that relates to what I identified in the plan view, where the approved design had that mechanical equipment strung along the corridor that resulted in these sort of louvers on the exterior wall. By moving that up to the roof, it allowed us to, we think, provide a probably even more fitting organization of the windows compared to the mills. Again, that is a trait that is uniform for most of the mills. So you can see I think a more repetitive organization of the windows. And again, this is the corridor side of the building. So we think compatible and complementary to the organization of the existing context. One adjustment we're proposing has to do with materials. As you may recall, in the North Andover Mills phase one design, we did propose what we call these kind of brick end caps, and we call them, so that the ends of each building, where they orient towards the machine shop village and district itself, we propose these brick ends. We're proposing that adjustment compared to the approved design. So you can see here at the east elevation, we have a very, of course, an identical really shape, but we're proposing to clad that in brick to reference the mills, and again the phase one design as well. We are proposing materials that are very similar and in many cases identical to what we're proposing in the phase one design. So the brick that we're proposing would be the same exact brick that we're proposing in the phase one design. The siding that you see on the second, third, and fourth floors as well. So same identical color as we're proposing in phase one to get that continuity between the two projects. The one adjustment, or I guess I'd say introduction of a new material we're proposing is this gray cement board. It's really in three textures. There's a we're showing a cement board lap siding at the base, and we're proposing that in a little bit wider exposure, an 8-inch exposure, horizontal clap siding compared to the 4-inch exposure for the top floors. We're proposing where you can see this vertical texture at the three elements, the center entrance, and then the bracketing each end, more of a board and batten texture. And we think that gives a kind of industrial appearance and aesthetics. We think that texture, again, is in keeping with the character of the Mill District. And then you'll see a smoother panel inset within that texture. So that runs through from the entrance right up, kind of slot, if you will, set a smoother texture set within that board and batten siding. One feature we loved about the original design was the accent color of the entry doors. Even though, as I noted, they've shifted a little bit, you could see a very, very similar concept of getting that punch of red color, sort of complementary to the brick color, and identifying each of those individual private entries. Now we'll move on to a comparison of the pond side of the building. Once again, same organization of the elevations. This is slide 9 of 12, I believe. So once again, very similar to the original concept. You can see from the pond side now the adjustment to the end caps, as I noted on the parking side. So the brick end caps, and in this case, turning the corner, and as it presents to the mills opposite the pond, bracketing each end of the building. We're bringing in, again, that we think color that's appropriate to provide that industrial aesthetic, this gray color to identify the entry lobby opposite, and that common space at grade. So these units, again, with their pond access, provide, as I noted in plan, a really wonderful opportunity for this ground floor and access in towards the pond, and again, south-facing. So you'll see in a rendering in a moment, we're proposing a similar sort of privacy screen, but really a wonderful outdoor space and amenity for these first floor units. But you could see quite a similar organization and even color palette as the approved design. And now to finish off, I just sort of have a few renderings just to see some of this in 3 dimensions. So this is slide 10 of 12, and it's showing the main entry. So we're looking at the north side of the building from the parking. This is the main entry to the lobby. You get some light at the upper lobbies as well, which is somewhat rare and will be pretty great. The original design did propose some sort of industrial canopy. We love that idea too, and proposing, it's not identical, but a similar sort of, in our case, steel like trellis that would support a canopy covering the door that we think is complementary to the mills. The approved design also had a banner signage that we think is pretty nice, and we're proposing something similar. And then you can see for the unit entries, again, that kind of punch of color to identify those private entries we think is great. This kind of call it a little bit mini version of the main canopy that give a little bit of cover over each door. Here you can see the base of that gray clapboard. Again, a little bit more exposure than on the top floors, and that, quite regular pattern of windows that we think is certainly in keeping with the mills. This is just a little bit zoomed in version of a couple of these entries. It's a great spot, of course, to identify the unit, have some lighting, and get a little cover over that door. And then finally, the final slide, I believe this is slide 12 of 12, shows the view looking towards the pond side of the building. So again, you can see the one sort of quite noticeable adjustment we're proposing is these brick end caps that turn the corner. So of course, this is the facade that is facing towards the mills. These great ground floor units, we're proposing actually a very similar privacy screen as was in the approved design as well, with these wood-like slats, providing some privacy for these ground floor terraces. Again, you can see the very much regular pattern of windows that we think will fit in quite nicely in this context. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. Let me see where we begin. Let me try to understand what you're hoping to gain from today's meeting, because in setting the stage for the plan that we did approve back in 2018, it took considerable work, meaning over many meetings for us to get the details down, including the signage that could be seen from public way, the number of banners, all of the details, and so forth. So are you trying to, there would be more layers of detail we would need to see. I appreciate that you've kept the footprint the same, the size and mass, which we do take into consideration, and the slight increase in height is probably negligible, and moving utilities to the roof is probably also negligible. There was a lot of work done in terms of reviewing historically what would be appropriate. Unlike your phase one, and I appreciate the phase one versus the phase two, but phase one, what we saw from Public Way was really the end of the building, which was the brick structure portion of it, which we focused a lot on the brick because that was what was being seen from Public Way as well. In this case, there was a lot of research previously done in terms of providing us with, similar structures that were there, wood structure that was there, looking at the 12 over 12, a massive photo of this is hanging in the center of Town Hall of the original buildings that were there. So in order to, I think one of the conclusions that we went to was that we were trying not to make it industrial looking. We were trying to make it look more as a wooden structure that would have been appropriate to be in conjunction with all of the other structures in that East Mill, if you will. I'm not sure I'm a fan of wanting to have the symmetry. I'm not sure the industrial look is something that complements what's there. This building, do you go by Edward or Ed?
Ed. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got it right. Sorry. So Ed, I think my opinion on this is that that building, this phase two building is going to has a lot more public visibility than the other one does, even though they're both on one side and the other's on the other side, because of how the surrounding buildings and residences are positioned around that other building. Also, it has visibility from across the pond from Water Street, which is also going to impact that. So we looked at all those architectural details. I know you studied it, even to the point of putting you know, a perpendicular element that sort of gave us the feel of barn doors, because that was in the original building, which you saw jetting out above the entranceways and sort of showed sort of that feel, if you will. And we landed on the 12/12s because we thought the 12/12s, which were in that original building, were also representative of that. So I don't know. I'm not sure. You know, if moving in this direction is the better of the directions. Are you looking to get today, Ed, a feel from us? Are you looking to? Because we would need more detail anyways. But are you looking to get a direction? Are you looking to see if we're willing to consider a new skin on this building and what that might look like?
We're certainly looking for your feedback. Yeah, that's why we're here. I mean, to some of the points that you just made, you know, I think, as I tried to articulate, is I think there are way more similarities between these two than differences. You know, that was our focus. We could see the good work that was done in the design and the good work that your commission did, and you know, we think the adjustments we're making or proposing are very, very minor. We recognize that the approach here was to have a mill that has a wood aesthetic, and we've embraced that. You know, but I think a wood, you know, mill, if you you know, look at that history, you're gonna see a pattern of windows that is very repetitive, and I think the adjustments we've made are probably more in keeping, you know, with that you know, type of structure. But again, I think they're relatively minor adjustments. And to the point on symmetry, I think that the organization we're proposing is you know, essentially the same as in the original design. So yeah, again, I think we did see again all the good work that was done by the design team and your group. So yeah, no, we're not proposing. I don't think we're proposing you know, significant adjustments here.
Well, let's open it up for discussion, and let's get some of the other commission, give the other commission members an opportunity to share their thoughts. I'll start with Justin. Justin, you're on mute. Thank you. Justin, you're back on mute.
Sorry about that.
No,
Jerry,
that's fine.
were you on the commission when this was originally approved? Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Oh,
was.
he's on mute.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, well then, Jerry, do you mind going first, just so I can, you know, because I wasn't on the commission. That was just before I joined. So getting, you know, Jerry's perspective might be helpful on this as well.
I'm more concerned about the material changes to the exterior. The floor plan layout to me,
Yeah, I agree with that, Jerry.
yeah, that doesn't bother me. You
No.
can change the interior as much as you want. It's the exterior materials. Did you change the windows?
Yeah, the windows, the materials. Yep.
Those are the things I need more information on.
So Jerry, can you give us a little more to work with there? So Jerry, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I'm having connection issues, but
Yeah, I froze. I saw the screen freeze up myself. So I think we're back. So can you give us a little more on that, Jerry?
I need to see the difference between the materials that were approved and what's being proposed now.
Okay. So can we look at one example, Jerry? If we were looking at that. So what you'd like to see is, like, for example, if we take a window, for example, what the proposed sort of cut sheet would be on the proposed window versus the approved
What was
window?
approved. And particularly around the entrances, I don't have a problem with the elevation change with the entrance. I think that actually makes it better.
Yep.
But there's a material change there. It looked, well, from what I saw from the materials, I couldn't tell if it was board and batten, which was described, or whether it was vertical aluminum.
Ed, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's board and batten is what is proposed.
All right, I don't have a problem with the board and batten.
Okay. All right, so you would like to see more of a side-by-side baseline, what we approved versus what proposed
Yes.
cut sheets and material specs are being proposed. Okay.
Yes.
Justin, can I go back to you now?
Yes, you can. To kind of piggyback on how Harry started the conversation was, I guess, again, before my time, but a lot of work went into the design, the original approved design, which, I can see a lot of the features that Harry mentioned and how they do complement the existing mill. So I guess the first question, and Harry posed it, is, what is the purpose of the change? Because obviously everyone was in agreement in 2018, and I'm not assuming that on your end you're just doing it because you think it's just an improvement for a visual improvement for the neighboring home. So I guess my question really is, what's the purpose and why wasn't the 2018 good enough? Again, it's tough to believe that is just because the design didn't fit. I mean, is it you got to wonder, is it just because they're having more 2 bedrooms versus 3 bedrooms, or 1 bedroom or studio? Is was it a numbers thing? Because again, obviously a lot of work went into it in 2018, and everyone seemed to be happy with it at that point because it was approved. So I'm just trying to figure out, what changed.
Well, I mean, to your last point, you mentioned the units, the apartment homes themselves. That again, those changes are within the interior footprint of the building, and so sticking with the exterior, I think that, again, to say it again, the concept that we started with, we think, was very, very strong. So it was, some of this is an adjustment of, for instance, when a mechanical system that's on the exterior wall and has a louver that goes to the exterior wall, and we remove that mechanical equipment, it goes to the roof, we have a different pattern. We think the pattern that we're showing with more regular repetitive windows actually fits into the mill district better than what was originally proposed. We have a different program and different mechanical systems, so we think we're able to improve the design in that regard. And there's a few areas where we think we've made some adjustments and tweaks that do improve the design, strengthen the original design. And I think another area I suppose I'd highlight is, this is phase 2 of North Andover Mills. certainly we're focused on the mills entirely for our aesthetic, but we think there's some adjustments that are in keeping both with phase one and the mills. And we think bringing in these brick end caps is proper to be configured, facing the mills, and it brings in that common material that we think ties this structure in better with the mills as well as the phase one design. So I guess that's a couple areas that I'd highlight.
Okay. Well, so for example, like, I'm looking at the window design. And so on the original approved, they're a black frame window with 6/6 panes, which is, I would say, similar in design to the East Mill building. So, why is, so I understand why that was approved. So why is not 6/6 and not a black frame window, more suitable next to that building?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, on that, those are some details we haven't dove into yet.
Yeah.
On the configuration of windows.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I just want to throw one comment in there. I think we, got involved in the project. There was a thought that because we are building the buildings across the street and they were of a particular architecture style, and that was reviewed by this commission, that we would want all of the new residential buildings, in quotes, to sort of have a similar architectural style on the facade. Even though we knew that this had been approved with somewhat, with a different facade design, we thought, what, if we're going to have new residential buildings within the greater Mill District, they should have a similar architectural style, so they're all sort of the same character. And that was sort of one of our early, so we brought as many materials that we had across the street at the West Mill over to the East Mill. I think what I'm hearing is that the commission doesn't think that that's appropriate, and that we should go back to some of the material palette that was approved in 2018, that this building should sort of stand alone. And that, things like the brick detailing or some of the other siding changes that we've proposed, aren't, we just should go back to what was proposed before, which was a gray, two tones of gray and hardy, I think it's cementitious boards, right, Ed?
Mm-hmm.
And then the window patterning. I think that we could certainly go back to that, color palette. I think that if that's what we thought we were, so there was a question of why do we make this change, and I think that was the reason we made the change. The reason we made the change is because we thought all the new residential buildings in the mills should have a similar style. But if that's
I can appreciate that, actually. That does make sense to me. I wasn't on the commission for the original approval of this, but I was for the West Mill. So I can appreciate, congruency between the two buildings. And I think that is a good idea, which leads me to my next question is, so why wasn't the West Mill building designed with a similar facade after this one was approved?
Well, we didn't do the original approval for the East Mill building. So that was done by RCG.
Oh.
So we came in with our own style. So we didn't do that design. So
that's
said,
true.
we sort of we came in with our own point of view and designed that building and took it through this commission and took it through the planning board for its final approval. And we thought to bring it back over there. But I'm open for the discussion. If this commission, this is your charge, says, listen, like before, we the brick, we don't want the siding changes, we don't want the window is the same window we have across the street. That's why we proposed that window, or similar.
Okay.
And so we could go back and have the same color palette or similar color palette that was done before, and the only changes would be more, if because the window, even fewer adjustments than we're currently proposing. But I think that's the question for discussion.
Okay. Yeah. I appreciate having, using the same materials. I think that's a good idea. I'm just kind of, since I came in halfway through, I don't want to undermine, what the commission decided before. So I'm just trying to figure out, how it all interacts right now. But I can appreciate that. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much what I have for questions at this point.
Yeah.
That
So
does
I
make
think,
sense.
David, this is Harry. I think you're spot on in the assessment. The work that we went through was not trying. We were trying to create a unique building, if you will, on the first application, but doing it in a way that could preserve sort of a relationship with the industrial look, with the relationship that set itself a little more distinct in terms of a lot of those. I mean, we went probably through, I'm going to say maybe half a dozen meetings and getting all of those details that Jerry was talking about down. And there was a lot of back and forth with the architectural team to introduce or modify a lot of those details, which a lot of that was using a lot of the historical documentation that we had presented, and so I think we felt that would have been a good balance for that campus. I think you're right about the west side in terms of, it's a different animal. It's not in the center of. It's on the tail end of the property, but it's also not in the heart of where the pond is or where the other buildings are in proximity. You have also, in close proximity, a very new development, if you will, a complex that's also, there. And so that kind of was a good bridge, if you will, to kind of in between the two for us, I think. It's a little different. I don't personally view it that way. But I think what you're proposing, moving utilities on the top, I don't think that dramatically would change the building, if you will. But it is the skin of the building. I mean, and the ratio of how the doors are positioned and so forth. I mean, both proposals have symmetry and so forth. I think it is the details of what we're trying. I mean, we painstakingly, and Ed brought up the cornice molding on the original. Well, we painstakingly, Ed, went through, what the depth of that should look like. What, how what that accent line should come out to look like in terms of its total feel. So those are the things that we spent the time on, was those details, and a lot went into them. And I think it would be a process for us to go back through it. Is what I'm saying. I think.
Yeah. No, and Harry, I appreciate that point. I think we just had maybe we didn't understand that history. I think we thought, to tie all these buildings together with one style sort of made it more appropriate. But at hearing we weren't here for that. So I think from our perspective, maybe we need to go back and maybe lessen the changes.
Okay.
The changes will be, maybe we go back and I'll talk to Ed about it, but we go back to, similar color scheme, cornice details. I mean, all those things we can probably do the same thing, and we'll study it and make sure. And really what we'll be talking about is, if maybe some locational elements on the windows. I still think that we should add more windows to the parking lot side, because we are getting rid of those louvers. I think it's an improvement to have more regularity on that side versus the industrial louvers sticking through. But we could, similar to the site plan, where the only real changes we made is we got rid of the the dumpster pad and put in some stairs and a handicap ramp. Maybe we could go back and say, okay, instead of wholesale facade redesign, like these are the handful of things that we're changing to make the inside changes that we want to make work, and just have that be what it is and go from there. It sounds like that's the tone of
that
the.
sounds, yeah, that sounds reasonable. I mean, we had, in, you know, some of the accents you had seen on the end of the building were like, you know, those cargo doors that we saw on, you know, 19th century, you know, buildings that were on that first rendition. You know, those are the type of subtle elements, if you will, David, that, you know, quite frankly, you know, they kind of mix the new with the old, if you will, you know, and kind of brought people to that. And those were the pieces that we tried to, yeah, it's a brand new building. It's always going to be a brand new building. We weren't trying to make it look like an old building, but we were also trying to introduce it as sort of some half step of like, wow, look at that. You know, those are pieces that would have been there, you know, and look at it from that way, perspective. You know, the windows, you know, some of the other features that are there. So yeah, what we can do, David, is I want to give the other two folks a chance to talk, but if we could schedule a continuance, you can tell me how much time, so that we don't have to go through the whole process of scheduling a meeting again, and just, you know, leave it on the schedule for a continuance. But I want to get Bernie. Why don't you have an opportunity to speak, and then Tim, and then we can go to the.
Thanks. Ed, is it possible you could pull up slide 8?
Sure.
So, yeah, I think that the mills are all about windows, and certainly your suggestion on the top is much more about windows as opposed to the louvers, which look kind of industrial. So I like that, but the one thing that I find, can you explain one thing? On the top, the gray, I don't know what those gray structures are on the left and on the right, but certainly in the bottom side, you're showing that you're losing windows on those.
Yeah, that's really just a reflection of the plan. So that's a reflection of the unit layouts themselves. They're sort of oriented towards the pond and towards the side. So that results in a more solid wall from the parking side. So it's a pure reflection of the unit layout within. We do think some relief from the repetition of the windows at key spots like entrances does provide some visual relief. So as an aesthetic, we think it's appropriate as well. But the main driver is the plan within.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Tim?
I really don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, so David, do you want us to make a motion for a continuance, give you guys an opportunity to take another, look at some of the feedback we've given, and then schedule another meeting?
Yeah, I think let us go back and make some adjustments, and we'll come back with a more targeted group of changes, and have that discussion maybe in probably a month or so, Ed.
Okay.
Sure.
So what I'll do, David, why don't we'll make a motion now for continuance without a date, and if who will get back to us when ready?
It'll be either me or Francis.
Okay, perfect. So let's make a motion. Can I have a motion?
Motion for continuance.
Okay,
Second.
Jerry. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to go around the room because it's easier. Tim, in favor?
In favor.
Justin?
In favor.
Jerry?
Aye.
Okay. And Bernie?
In favor.
Okay. Motion's passed. Okay, David, then we'll put a placeholder in about a month, and then when you guys get back to us, then we'll schedule something. Usually only takes an additional about 48 hours or so. We just got to coordinate schedules and so forth, but usually we can post something within 48 hours to have a continuance.
Very good. We appreciate the feedback tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, now we have the next agenda item. Hold on one second, guys. Is there any miscellaneous correspondence that we need to discuss? I'll go around the room. Jerry?
No, nothing.
Okay, Tim?
I have nothing.
Okay. Justin?
Nothing.
Bernie?
Nothing.
You know, I didn't welcome Bernie, but Bernie's our newest member, and welcome, Bernie. I didn't mean to overlook that, but I don't know if you've been introduced to Tim and Justin and Jerry, but Bernie's a new member and a North Andover resident. So I just thought I'd mention that. So if there's
Welcome.
nothing else,
Harry,
if
this is
there's
Bernadette.
nothing, yes, Bernadette.
Just a note, we're not going to be able to hold a meeting on Monday because tomorrow is actually Veterans Day, so I won't be able to post it for the 48-hour notice until
Okay.
Friday. And it looks like remote meetings are busy for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week unless you want to hold something in person. So I can get back to you on that, but Monday it looks like it's not going to be able to work because of the 48 hours.
Okay. And we can't squeeze a half hour in somewhere remote.
I will look, it looks like there's meetings on Planning Board Tuesday, Conservation Wednesday, and Board of Health on Wednesday, both all at 7 o'clock. So if we want to try to squeeze something in before them, maybe?
I would.
Okay.
That's Wednesday?
Do you want me to try something for Wednesday at like 6 o'clock?
Yeah, so let's go around the room. Jerry, if we did 6 o'clock on Wednesday, would that work for you? We can decide just now, Bernadette.
Yeah, that would work for me.
Okay. Tim, because we're only going to need a half hour tops.
Yeah, if it's going to be short, I think that should be fine.
The only thing we're going to have on that agenda is going to be 180 Water Street. Bernie,
Okay.
will that work for you?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Justin?
This is you said next Wednesday at 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay. Bernadette, go ahead, book that for 6 o'clock, and I'll talk to town council and see what they're going to recommend. We've already made a motion to issue, but let's see. I think it would be in our best interest to find out what the next steps would be in terms of what the town can and cannot do.
Okay, I'll put that out there tonight, and as soon as I get a response from Cam, I will let you know.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your participation. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Second.
I need a second. Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right. Thank you guys for your participation this evening, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thanks, Harry.
Okay.
Thanks, Eric.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.